And first of all, I would like to thank Evergreen Valley College for finding us this nice place for our talks, and we hope to use these in the following months. Today we have also scheduled a public viewing at 8 o'clock. I don't think it's going to happen because we do optical astronomy, and for optical astronomers we require to have a clear sky, so probably we won't be able to go to the observatory. If we can, and if the weather is good in upcoming Fridays, through the meetup.com we might announce some viewing this month. The point of this talk is just to talk about something that you all have seen before. Have you seen the moon before? You all did, right? And you know it's always the same, is that correct? Does it appear always the same position, or goes through some changes? It goes through several changes. And in fact, we could say that the moon, along with the sun, they have been the two most observed objects in the sky since the beginning of times, when we as a species start to use them to find our ways through nature. And pretty much you could say that science and even mathematics got a major development after we start observing these celestial objects. So we as a group as a species primarily, we move out from pretty much find food outside and gather food and move from place to places to be more sedentary and develop agriculture and tame animals. And when we did that, we migrate from some moon ruling system to a more sun ruling system. And you can see that in calendar and also in religious festival. So what we would like to do today is, first of all, to give a little bit of, not history, but a few points regarding the moon itself, moon observations in the past. And I think some of these topics, if you have seen some of my presentations before, I'm going to call your attention again to it. I promise that I'm not going to do a lot of math. In fact, there will be no math in this presentation. I will save you from that. And then I will go in YouTube and show some videos that present high-resolution images of the moon. So we're going to go from the moon as some ancient object viewed a long time ago, the way I actually perceive, to something a little bit more modern, more recent. So let's do this trick, see what we can do. So probably, and this is not certain, but probably it is suggested that one of the first attempts to observe celestial objects, to observe the moon and find regularity and try to establish some mathematical relationship between what we observe and what we think is going on, and record that so that future generations can make use of it and perhaps implement and improve over the knowledge built, is a bone. So it's a piece of bone with a quartz, is a mineral on top, and this quartz possibly was used to make the marks. And it comes in 3 marks, in 3 rows, and if you add up the number of marks in each row, it adds 60, so, which is interesting in itself. But if you look at the first row, it's suggested that is a system that is based on the number 10. So in the first row you have 10 minus 1, in fact 10 minus 1, 9, and then you go to 20, or 2 times 10 minus 1, 19, and then you go to 21, 2 times 10 plus 1, and 11, 10 plus 1. And then you add all of that, you have your 60. And then you go down, and you have the prime numbers between 10 and 20, which is something interesting too. And then you have the row, the third row, with 2 times 3, and the right-hand side is equal 6, 4 times 2 equal 8, and have 10s, 5 plus 5, 10. So you have some numbers that indicate people are thinking about mathematics. And if you look in with the microscope, there are further marks that indicate perhaps some connection with moon observations, with the cycle of the moon of 29 days. Some people relate that to woman menstrual cycle, but some authors suggest this has something to do with the moon. What is interesting is 23,000 years. It's a community in Africa that got to be obliterated after a volcanic eruption. So it's 23,000 years ago. And then let's try to go to some myths, legends, and perhaps religious beliefs that arise after we observe the moon with some detail. So first of all, if you look at the moon is not always the same. So you know the moon appears sometimes as a full moon, sometimes you don't see it in the sky, neither during daytime or nighttime. Sometimes the moon is in a crescent phase and a quarter phase. And I have 2 pictures here with the moon as first quarter, I say from the northern hemisphere. If you go to the southern hemisphere, the phases are reversed. So if you learn everything about phases in the northern hemisphere, and then you happen to do a trip to the southern hemisphere, things will kind of move around. And you have to be careful when you do your studies. And down here we have a picture of the moon in the last quarter. It's called waning crescent phase or last quarter. So the moon appears in the sky different. Why is that? So now you are educated, you have all this fancy technology, and also you learn a lot about astronomy in the school, and you know the reasons. But the main question is, if you think ourselves living in 3,000 years ago, I mean, what do you make of what you observe, first of all? Second, when you think about the moon, you think about moon rock. You think about astronauts. You think about something you can touch. But 5,000 years ago, moon, along with planets, were not the moon and the planets we know today. They were something else. In fact, they were, in several cultures, they were associated with gods. And they had a god-like structure. They had god-like influences. And looking at the moon in those days was not just looking at a satellite. As looking at Jupiter, it is fine through the telescope, which we do today. In those days, finding Jupiter in the sky, close to the moon or close to some group of stars, were something else. It's more than just observing what today we call planet. We're observing a god with some influence, with some stories, and you had your parents, grandparents, and all your tribal, all your members had stories about these celestial objects. So it's much more than just the physical aspect that we study today. So each major phase of the moon lasts 7 days. So the moon goes through the cycle of phases, which means from, let's say, new moon to back to new moon again, in about 29 days. So let's round to 30 days. So 30 days, a month. And then you can think about month as moon. See you in 2 moons. See you in 2 months, about 30 days. So you can, you think of yourself and your culture using the moon to make time, to make a calendar. So the moon goes through waxing and waning. So when the moon starts in its new phase, every day you observe in the sky, it appears a little bit bigger, a little bit brighter. So this process of every day appear a little bit bigger and brighter gave rise to this name waxing, which is growing bigger, growing brighter. And in the waxing phase, what is interesting about it, if you observe in the northern hemisphere, the sun rises in the eastern sky. So as you face south, in your eastern sky, the sun rises. And then after the sun, then comes the moon in the sky. So you observe the sun, let's say, 6 a.m. It's over there in your eastern sky. And then the sun rises by noon, is at its maximum height, in its culmination, right there. And then the moon comes in. So the sun keeps going down, and the moon just fades, chases the sun in the sky. So this moon is sort of a hunter that is going after the sun. Now, you know what that is, because you know the moon circles Earth, and the Earth circles the sun, and then you have to study that. Those days you didn't. Now, if you think about the sun as being a god, as being a creator, as being associated with the ultimate being, the supreme being of your religious belief, and having the moon following that is heck of a good. It is really a good moment. It's a moment that things are the way they are. You are following the big leader. Now, in the waning phase, as you observe the moon, every day or every night, the moon is a little bit bigger, smaller. So the moon is growing smaller. If I can use this term, growing smaller. And it's waning. And when you observe in the sky, something interesting happened. Hey, hi. Good to see you, man. So what happened? Well, what happened is the moon rises first. And when the moon rises first in the sky, and then after a while, that comes the Lord. That comes the sun. So it's a different configuration in the sky. In the waning phase, the Lord, the sun, and I'm thinking about and I think as somebody living 5 years ago would think. So the Lord is chasing the people. Something is wrong. It's not the right thing to do. So in some cultures or in certain traditions, you see the waxing moon as being something good. It's nice to start a business that way. It's nice if you marry during that time frame. It's nice if you start something new during that time. And the waiting phase, be careful, because you are going away and you are being chased by the Lord. So let's see how these configurations appear in the sky, and I will bring some animation for that. But before, let's talk about tradition. So in India, the moon is Chandra. And by the way, according to certain stories, Chandra, resolution is not good here. So Chandra was born all bright. It's a full moon, all bright, beautiful, perfect, and male, and all attractive. The guy had charming. I mean, he could charm everyone, including the married woman, which is a problem. Especially when the married woman was the married woman of a god, Jupiter. That's a problem, according to certain books. So he was born out of milk, bright. The gods made him a planet. So planet is not, in those days, was not what today we call planets. Today we call planets as rocky or gas or icy objects that go around the sun. So planets in those days were anything that behaved in the sky different from what stars do. The stars every single day, as you observe them in the sky, the relative position of stars are always the same. They don't change. And then they rise in the east, they go up to the maximum culmination, they set in the west, they keep going their business all the time the same way. The relative distribution of the stars are always the same. Planets are not. They also rise in the east, set in the west, but if you observe over consecutive nights, they seem to move in respect to those stars. That's why they are called planets or wonders. So, Moon is the biggest of all wonders we know. It's the one that changed position in the sky in a dramatic way, as we hope to see. So the Moon was called a planet. And Jupiter is a planet, Venus is a planet, no problem. Here's the problem. He was a very charming young boy, had an affair with Hera, wife of Jupiter, got a son, Buddha, not the Buddha Gautama, Buddha, which became a planet, Mercury and Moon didn't get so well. I mean, father and son say, hey, you father, you did something with my mother, it's complicated, right? And then you have a soap opera going on here. According to certain other books, that was not the case, but I'm trying to spice up my talk here. So, Mercury and Chandra, Moon, they didn't get along very well. What did Brahma did? So look at this. In a few talks ago, we kind of focused on the Gayatri Mantra, which is a mantra that talks about these three words, the word of earth, Bur, and the region between Bur and the sun, Bhuvaha. And that region is an atmosphere. So in that atmosphere, it's not just the atmosphere in those days that we breathe. I mean, today when we talk about atmosphere, it is an atmosphere that goes all the way to ionosphere, right? So we have the troposphere, we have the stratosphere, the mesosphere, the ionosphere, and that is the atmosphere we know. But in those days, atmosphere or air is anything that goes from earth and water all the way to the sun. And in there you have the planets. See that? So it's a different cosmology if you think. That is not astronomy as we know today. It's just cosmogenesis and it's a worldview that has not the testable tools we have today to test. And becomes a religious framework. So Brahma, the major god, didn't like that and made a punishment. Now, Moon, you're going to go to the region above the atmosphere. You're going to go above the sun. Now, in the Gaia, you have this Earth, you have the region between Earth and the sun, and you have the region between the sun and the polar star. That is this cosmological worldview that we see in the Gaia, in some of the Gaia's version. So now the Moon is over there, beyond the sun. And who they found? Who? Chandra found? Stars. So these stars, constellations, they are the daughters, beautiful daughters of Daksha. So he was charming, right? He was charming. And what did he do? Not just with one, but he married 27 of them at one time. He was married to 27 daughters of Daksha. But he had an agreement. Listen. Remember, he was the full moon. You're going to marry all my 27 daughters, but you had to treat them equally. You cannot favor one over the other. Do you think this happened? No. I mean, it's complicated. I don't know what it is to be married to two people, three people. I mean, one you can handle, but 2, 3, 4, 27 is enough to make somebody's life extremely complicated. But So he favored one. So Daksha didn't like that. Brahma didn't like that either. So he was cursed. And as a result of that, he ended up going through phases. And that's why the moon goes, that's the story, the legend that goes, the moon goes through these different phases. Sometimes you don't see it all. Sometimes you see it's growing, and that's good. Sometimes you don't see, you see it, it's full glory. That's the full moon. And then you have several festivals, you have all kind of rituals going on, and then you have a phase, the moon is going waning. And so let's take a look of that in a simulation. I took away the daylight, so you don't have the daylight there, but you have the sun. So basically the sun rises in the east, goes past to its maximum height. The moon follows in a waxing phase. This is the crescent waxing phase. The sun sets, and the moon is going to come down. And the moon is going to set. So in this presentation, the moon is visiting some region. The moon is in some nakshatra, is visiting one of the houses, one of the lunar houses. Waxing phase. What do we learn about waning phases? Wow, it's a different situation. The moon rises first. Be careful. It's not so emotional. It's more into the moon. The moon is already there. The sun is coming in. The sun chases the moon in the sky. The moon sets, and the sun is going to set. So let's take a look at the moon's phase. Why the moon's phase? And for that, we're going to take a trip outside Earth. And we're going to go to the North Pole. And then we're going to rise. And then you're going to see the moon, Earth, and the sun in this phase, so that you can understand the moon's phase. Earth is rotating. Earth is rotating. And we are kind of hovering on it. Moon doesn't have self-illumination. It's provided by the sun. Moon is always half lit by the sun. So depending on how you see the half lit hemisphere, you perceive phases. So phases are not created by any shadows Earth casts on the moon, but how much of that lit hemisphere we happen to be seeing. And Orion's down there, Pleiades is right there, and now it's in a full phase. not an eclipse. Now let's run the phases once more. Waxing phases, full moon, waning phase, crescent, and back to waxing phase. The full moon is a moment, the new moon is a moment, each phase is a moment that has to be the one related to a specific position of moon, earth, and sun. And which phase is this? Quarter what? Waxing or waning? Waxing. Very good. So, about the same time in China and India, this notion of lunar nations were built. In Mesopotamia, now the sun is a big ruler, and the sun is visiting regions in the sky throughout the year, and we call those regions constellations, and the sun goes through 13 constellations, now 13, but in Mesopotamia it was established 12 regions, 12 constellations. In India, the 12 constellations were still used, but in their core belief system, the lunar houses are the base of what they consider to be their astrological system. It's a system that has strong belief and religious background, and it's pretty much into the culture. But in China, and about the same time, the lunar houses were also established. They have different names, not necessarily the stars associated with it are the same, but it's the same concept. The moon goes through certain regions, and each one of the regions, there's a group of stars with stories associated with it, and supposedly those regions, if you marry somebody, or if you start something, or if you were born under that influence, you might carry the name of that constellation, and then you might inherit the stories associated with it, the moral values and everything, and then you become that. So that's pretty much into the culture. And what I would like to do in the next slide is to show some of these nations according to the Indian culture. And I will read the names, and by the way, I don't know Sanskrit, and so you're going to hear for the first time Sanskrit with Brazilian or Portuguese accent. It's going to be interesting. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but only through some of it. So we start today, and then we're going to go to Peru in India.
Tejo main next king.
The first lunar house is Ashvini, which is Aries. The three bright stars in Aries right there. And the moon will be visiting it. There you go. That's the first mention. And now I'm going to try to bring the moon into perspective. And depending on which year that is, the moon is not always in the same position. It's kind of off. The moon's orbit recesses, and then you have all kind of complicated issues going on. There's the moon in the first lunar nation. Then it's going to go to the next one, Bharani, which are the three stars, also part of Aries. There you go. The next lunar mansion is Kritika, the Pleiades. It's right there. And I will zoom in on the Pleiades, which is a star cluster of hundreds of members. You can see that in the telescope. And the moon is visiting the Kritikas, the 6 sisters. The 7 sisters stay with the rishis, one of the 7 rishis, according to the legend. Now, it's going to go, the moon's going to visit Rohini, which is the eye of Taurus, the eye of Bull. It's right there. It's the brightest star in Taurus. And then it's going to go to Mrgashira, which is the head of Orion. It's right there. And then Betelgeuse, which is Ardra. It's right there. The orange star. And the moon is visiting it. And then the moon finally goes to Castor and Pollux in Gemini. That's the next lunar mansion. So I'm just trying to illustrate where the legend comes. It's based on observations. And probably the legends start in a certain time of the year. The moon was very much close to the stars. And then the stories started, and then it propagated, and then it were pretty much set. Okay, this is the most complicated I'm going to give you. And I tried to put it on the board last time with Stonehenge, and I think it was a disaster. But I had to start that way to illustrate the Stonehenge. And you might hear from me if you are in meetup.com, because I would like to start a workshop that's going to run online, so it's not going to be a workshop physical with talks and things like that. And the main intent is to build a Stonehenge in the South Campus. You know that big area over there? We're going to try to build a Stonehenge based on Saint Jose, latitude and the position of the moon here. And I will start, depending on my timing, and to contact those who are interested in building that. Why Stonehenge is important and has to do with the moon? Well, the moon, the sun goes to the solstice. And I didn't focus the sun because the talk was not about the sun. But the sun has 2 specific positions throughout the year we call solstice. And the summer solstice, the position of the sun is such, the sun reaches maximum declination in the northern hemisphere that can get 23.5 degrees. So here is a picture or a sketch of what Earth is. Earth's axis of rotation is right here. And this line, C, indicates the orbital plane of Earth. The orbital plane of Earth around the sun. If you are studying astronomy, or if you study astronomy, you know the sun is somewhere along this line. Because Earth orbits the sun. So the sun could be here. If the sun is here, this position, in the northern hemisphere, we call that moment summer solstice. Okay? And if the sun happened to be here, we call that what? Winter solstice. So the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun, and the southern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun. And then we experience the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere and summer solstice in the southern hemisphere. Now let's place the moon in this configuration. If we place the moon's orbital plane has a tilt with respect to this plane. And this tilt is about 5 degrees. So here's the moon orbiting Earth, right? Goes into the white orb, comes out here, and go about, and takes 27.3 days to complete an orbital turn in respect to the stars. And if you think about phase to phase, it goes 29.5 days from here as a new moon to that new moon again. But here is the orbital plane. Here's the complication. This is not fixed. This orbital plane undergoes what we call precession. Like if you had played with top when you were a child, or if you teach physics, you have to play with the top with your students. There is a motion called precession that in the case of our satellite moon is caused by Earth bulging, equatorial bulge, and the sun, the combination of these two objects. In fact, the gravitational influence of those two on the moon and the orbital plane precesses. So sometimes you might draw this line, it's always 5 degrees, but sometimes this goes up or down, like over there. So you have a position in which the moon is above the ecliptic plane, and here is below the ecliptic plane, the description of it. So here on Earth, this line is the equator, Earth equator, which is perpendicular to this line. So here's Earth equator. So we live, 37 degrees, San Jose. So we are somewhere here. 30 degrees is more or less that. More or less that. So we are somewhere here. 37 degrees. That's San Jose, somewhere in there. So look at this. In this position up there, the moon, in respect to the equator, has a minimum declination of what? Well, 23.5 degrees to the equatorial plane plus 5 degrees, which is the inclination of its orbit. So 28 plus 5, 23.5 degrees plus 5, 28.5 degrees southern declination. And if you look in this other side, 23.5 plus 5, 28.5 northern declination. So when the moon is in this situation, in this configuration, and this happens every 18.6 years, that's another number to take into consideration. So when the moon is in there, in 2 weeks, the moon goes from in respect to the equator, minus 28.5 degrees to plus 28.5 degrees, multiply this by 2, 57 degrees in 14 days. Which means you see the moon reaching maximum height in the sky way almost a few degrees from the zenith, and 2 weeks later is pretty much down close to horizon. Now, if you think of moon as a satellite, not a biggie. But if you think of the moon as a god, as Chandra, then you haven't told stories for so many generations. This has to mean, right? The same thing here. So this is the lunar standstill, the maximum one and the minimum one. Stonehenge has all to do with that. The North American, Native American, they also observe that, and they mark the lunar standstill positions on petroglyph, and I didn't bring, but it is another point to consider. So let's move on and remember still aspects of Stonehenge. So we have a distribution, a circular distribution of megaliths, and Stonehenge was built over several periods between 3000 BC and almost 500 BC. So it was built over several periods. There is one that was extremely associated with lunar observation and the sun solstice and lunar observation. And in this location, in this particular location, you can find, by observing this 1, 2, 3, 4 points. So this is a megalith, is a big boulder. This is a mound. This is another megalith, and you have a mound in there. And the situation is this. If you take from the center, I don't have a cursor, from the center all the way to that rock over there, the hillstone, you see the sun rising in summer solstice. It rises at that point. That's the maximum you can see the sun rise. And that was pretty much found. So, but that position is also seen if you stand on that corner. This is 91, 92, 93, and 94. If you stand on 93 and you look along with the 94, you're going to see the sun rising exactly at that point in summer solstice. Now, if you stand here and you look down in this direction, you're going to see the sun setting in winter solstice along this direction. This is a perfect configuration. So whoever found this place looked carefully over several generations. It's not just somebody decided to build a Stonehenge. There is no computer, and these are monoliths that had to be taken from miles and miles to that location. Now, if you stand in this, if you stand at that corner and you look along this direction, you find the lunar or the moon rising in long or major standstill, which happens every 18 years, 18.6 years, right there in that direction. Now, if you stand in that point and you look past through the center and look across this point, you're going to find the moon rising in minor standstill. If you try to do this in another location, it's not going to be a rectangle. It's not going to be nicely done like that. Okay. Now, if you stand here and you look along 94, you're going to see the lunar major standstill setting. And if you look towards that direction from here to the 93 monolith, you're going to find the lunar minor standstill setting. Crazy? Yes, it is. So if you are interested in Stonehenge, if you ever thought about, okay, I would like to do what was done several years ago, except that now I have a computer and I can make prediction, and I can sit down there with my soccer chair, and wait and see the moon rising and say, hey, cool, it's right there. If you want to do that, be attentive to my mail through meetup.com. And then we will try to do all of that online. There is a software we can download, and then we can look for moon's position and play around and learn a lot. So what I'm going to do now is to show the video I tried to show the last time and didn't work. So the video is going to come out of today, and then we're going to go to Stonehenge, and then we're going to locate ourselves right here, and then we're going to look around and see all these rocks, and then we're going to look towards the Hillstone, and then we're going to see the sun rising in summer solstice. Before, it's just a picture of Stonehenge as it is now. So we're going to stand right here, and we're going to look across these blocks onto the Hillstone, which is somewhere there. These are the rocks I showed you before. This is the 91, the Mount 92, 93 is over there, 94. So we have a rectangle kind of like this. The Hillstone right there, northeast, in the middle of the screen. And we're going to zoom in on it. We're going to go to summer solstice and to the morning.
Hello. I had a few YouTube videos on the lunar reconnaissance orbiter, but I'm not going to show. I lost them when we were trying to figure out how to project. I can put them in our web page, and besides it's already 7 o'clock, and I like to stay on top all the time. So that's it. Appreciate your coming. Do you have any question you would like to ask before I hand over? Yeah.
What was the programs you were using to do all this?
This is the Stonehenge software. Stonehenge software. This is a paid software, it's $80. There are several versions. There is a software called Stellarium. You can do basically the same thing. Probably you cannot go that much back in time, but it's free. It's called Stellarium. So those of you who would like to participate in this workshop, you have to go to the meetup.com, sign up. And the idea is to use this Stellarium and try to find moon positions in different times of the month. And then we're going to build some local Stonehenge and just go there. It doesn't need to be at night. You need to see the moon rising in a certain position, just have fun. What they did in Stonehenge, they observed over several generations, and they had places they would put the stick and try to find where the moon would be rising. You can do something in less scale, but with more control because of the software. There is an announcement we would like to make. First of all, we don't have public viewing tonight because it's overcast. But Professor Nargis would like to announce the next talk next month. And I will pass over to her just 1 minute.
Hi everyone, my name is Nargis Adham, and I just want to announce our next public talk, which would be in February 5th, 2015, which is the first Friday of the February, and it is from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., same place, BPA Theatre right here. And the talk of the title of the talk is A Planet for Goldilocks, NASA's Search for Life Beyond the Solar System, by Dr. Natalie Batalha. So we have a very special guest next month, which is she is Natalie Batalha, and she is astrophysicist at NASA Ames Research Center, and she is she's mission scientist for NASA Kepler's mission. So we are very lucky that she will be here next month with us. So NASA's Kepler mission is a special mission designed to see just one portion of our galaxy, Milky Way, and to see how many, and to find planets like Earth in habitable zone, and to certain how many stars have those planets. So that would be very interesting talk, And again, I would say that I would encourage all of you, don't miss that talk. Natalie Batalha will be here. I'm so excited, and thank you very much. See you next month.
Okay.